Yassine Nassari was convicted of the more serious offences, convicted last year and sentenced to 3.5 years in prison. He lived in Ealing but had been in Syria, and when he came back into the country, on him he had some documentation, some of which were instructions on how to build the kind of rockets that are fired in from Gaza into Israel, detailed instructions on how to build those homemade rockets, but also a number of other documents which showed clearly that he had an interest, at the very least, in suicide terrorism, in martyrdom operations, in what you do for the families of people after they've committed suicide in the cause of the jihad. He was, as I say, given 3.5 years in prison, but because of the time he'd served and because of this scheme designed to ease overcrowding, he was released 17 days early on the 11th of February. But he was not the first, because Abdul Maneem Patel, a young man who was sentenced to 6 months in prison last year, it turned out was actually released in January. He possessed also a number of documents of interest to terrorists.
This comes out this afternoon. Jack Straw promptly takes action to make sure it won't happen again.
Yes, it's been one of those interesting afternoons. First of all, we found out about the first one. The Ministry of Justice confirmed that, and then as the story grew, I got a call and it just said, Jack Straw's decided there will be no more people convicted of terrorism offences released under this scheme. I mean, this was a scheme designed to ease prison overcrowding. There are thousands of shoplifters and burglars who are coming out under this scheme. You don't ease prison overcrowding by releasing the very few terrorists that are likely to come out in the next few years, and clearly this was a political decision. Much better not to release terrorists. The Ministry of Justice said, in the light of these cases, the Justice Secretary has decided to change the criteria for the end of custody licence scheme so that any prisoner convicted under terrorism legislation would not be eligible, and that applies from now.
Briefly, Mr Straw's opponents will say, what a cock-up, won't they?
They will say what a cock-up. Shutting the stable door after the horse has bolted has come from the Liberal Democrats already, a bit of a cliché, I suppose. The Tories have said, well, look, we're arguing in Parliament at the moment about whether people who haven't been charged with anything should be detained for 28 days or 42 days while they're being investigated for terrorism. And at the same time, you're letting people out 17 days early. What's the point of all this?